AAVE, pretty much words that non-black people should are asking, or that should not be saying. I'm aware now, and I'm sorry if I offended anyone. I really didn't intend to, but now I know. I had no idea. What phrase? I don't want to say it. Also, I will not be saying words in association to AAVE.
You'd think she actually said something really offensive, but the term in question here is no cap on a stack for real for real. On a scale from 1 to 10, how bad did that offend you? Hearing that, did that make you cry or feel any pain? She's acting like she's deathly afraid to say it again, like he whose name shall not be spoken. This is a grown-ass adult, bro, on a live stream pretending to be afraid to say no cap on a stack for real, apologizing for saying no cap on a stack for real. What has the world come to? Grown-ass adult, bro. And with this whole AAVE thing, what we're seeing here is a common tactic people like Hassan and all this little circle of people like to use, where they inflate issues that aren't actually issues, that people aren't really bothered by realistically out here. They inflate them to act like they're gonna be the ones to solve it and really just push through it and be the ones to speak against it, so they can pretend to solve an issue that isn't really a big issue. And this gives the illusion that they're out here on some, serious social justice shit out here, just solving all the issues, all the societal issues out here, they're really just on the front lines doing big things, when really this isn't affecting anybody. This isn't even affecting the people that are said to be affected by it. Nobody cares if you're saying no cap. Nobody actually cares. This isn't an actual issue that people are affected by out here. These people would rather just sit in their multi-million-dollar mansions in their gated communities and speak for people that they actually have no real direct contact with, that they are not in tune with whatsoever. Because it seriously is foolish to think that anybody out here is actually concerned with this whatsoever. The trolls and delusional people on Twitter do not represent actual society out here. These people are literally just people who are terminally online. Anybody in a Twitch chat on a regular basis, they are not at all a reflection on reality and real people. They're just not. This is quite possibly the stupidest shit I've ever heard. So does that mean somebody who's African but not African American can't use the words? Or is it cool just because they're black? But by definition of the term, they wouldn't qualify as being allowed to use it, because that's not African culture. It's African American culture, right? So are we going by definition of the term, or are we going by simple skin complexion? And whenever we go by just skin complexion, that leads to a whole new set of issues. You see why none of this is capable of making any sense? Because it doesn't actually make any sense. Look, I'm from the DMV, and if you know anything about the DMV, which is the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and not the Department of Motor Vehicles, you know we have some of the most broad and in-depth slang in the country. It's our culture as DMVers, no matter the race, because culture and vernacular isn't all about just race. We don't trace every word or phrase back to one single individual and check the color of their skin to then go credit that word to that racial group. We just accept the word into our culture and use it as a collective. It becomes part of our culture as folks from the DMV. And whenever I hear people who aren't from the DMV using our slang, it's cringy. It's cringy because they're not from here, not because they don't look like the people who traditionally use the words in the DMV, because anybody can use it. It's our shared culture, no matter the skin color. Even if black people created some of the slang terms we use, we don't exclude anybody within our DMV community from saying those words just because they're not black. Because that's racist as shit. It's gatekeepy and weird and just petty. Like, nobody cares. If you're from the DMV, you're part of the culture of people from the DMV. It's got nothing to do with race. Everyone wants to claim ownership to something. Don't create something and use it openly if you don't want anyone else to use it. People adopt what they like, whether it be style, language, etc. So be prepared to see other people do what you do if they like the way you do it, wear what you wear if they like what it looks like, and say what you say if they like the way it sounds. It's not always an attack. Sometimes it's just appreciation for your culture and they want to adopt it themselves. They may not do it right at first, but that's being human, just trying to evolve yourself and expose yourself to more things that you enjoy and adopt it. There should be nothing wrong with that. I'd also like to add that unfortunately I did scroll on Twitter a bit to see some of the takes, and I saw some non-black people defending it, like some Middle Eastern girl was defending it, and just a bunch of black people were like, yo, we actually don't care about this shit, and you're not even black, so who are you to even speak on this? Like, it's mostly non-black people defending this AAVE thing. Like, most of the black people that are seeing this shit are like, dude, we actually don't care if you use this slang. You know, like, we just don't care. Like, just say what you want. It's never that deep. But then you have white people like Hassan who are out here defending it, who are basically just pick-me-ass white people with a massive white savior complex who want to get invited to the cookout so bad. But I'm sorry, Hassan, you're just gonna have to starve. You don't speak for us. You're not part of our culture. Sorry. Culture isn't tied to just race and ethnicity. If a black dude grows up in Japan, he will likely feel more tied to Japanese culture than he would black culture because he didn't grow up in a black community. He's not so in tune with their traditions and customs as he is with Japanese traditions and customs. There are black people who are completely out of touch with black culture. There are white people who grew up in predominantly black communities who are more tied to black culture than a black kid who grew up in a white suburb somewhere. There are white people, Asians, and Hispanics who thoroughly understand the struggles of being a minority in their community if they're minorities in their community. If you're a white kid who grew up in a mostly black and Hispanic hood, you'll likely understand the struggles of being a minority more than the black and Hispanic kids in said area. Because in that area, you're the minority. You're the only white person there. You stand out like a sore thumb everywhere you go. You get picked on and bullied at school for looking different. You are a target everywhere you go, constantly being looked at as if you don't belong or fit in. And you're really just not anybody's go-to pick. Most people would rather stick with people who look like them because that's what they're comfortable with. So you'll be used to being excluded from things simply based on your race if you're white in a mostly black area. But want to know who's not facing that in that area? The black and Hispanic kids, because they're not facing that because everyone around them looks like them. So her getting up here and apologizing is, to me, just an example of somebody who's deathly afraid of being canceled or being perceived as offensive by anybody. This isn't an actual sincere apology. This is called protecting sponsors and marketability. I don't think I've seen somebody fold so hard for a dumber reason. I'm not too familiar with her as a content creator. I'm not attacking her because I dislike her content. I literally don't know anything about this woman other than her whole skincare UV light scam debacle. This isn't me hating on the girl. I'm just saying what clearly nobody around her is saying. It's genuinely sad to see somebody be this spineless. And I think all she's really doing by throwing this apology out there is upholding this really toxic kind of separatist mindset. This like, we want to segregate everybody based on race, even like through language. If you don't look like them, you can't speak like them. You can't even use the terms they use. The slang belongs to this group. This belongs to that group, and none of it can mingle. I think that's really racist. And yeah, it's just bad. I think it's just a bad look. I don't think she actually knows what she's defending by doing this. I think she thinks she's doing the right thing. Because really, when you break it down, you're apologizing for using slang. Slang doesn't exclusively belong to anybody. But if it must belong, then it belongs more to the culture than any specific race. And the culture of the term she used would be mostly a fusion of what I'd say would be internet in hip hop culture because it's a parody phrase derived from terms that originated or were at least popularized through hip hop for the most part, and it came from multiple subcultures which consist of all sorts of races and ethnic backgrounds, not just one umbrella culture that owns them all. And I'll make another point to tear this down even further. Let's say a Hispanic kid grows up in a predominantly black community and creates a slang term of his own. It becomes catchy with his peers, other people in his community start using it, and it catches on and becomes a slang term. But the kid it originated from is Hispanic. Does that mean all the black kids can't use the slang term because they're not Hispanic, yet the word originated from a Hispanic kid? Should only Hispanic people be allowed to use that slang term? Because since that slang term can be traced back to a Hispanic kid, does the word or phrase now belong to that racial group specifically? Like, are we gonna sit here and trace every single slang term back to the specific individual who created it and then identify which racial group they belong to so we can then go credit that term to that specific racial group and then exclude everyone else who doesn't belong to that group from saying it? That sounds like segregation to me, buddy. That sounds like racism. People using common language and common slang amongst each other is letting the cultures fuse and create foundations for new subcultures of their own. Going against that is essentially promoting segregation. Like, really think about this. And there's tons of subcultures, you know, Twitch culture, DMV culture, skater culture, goth culture. Each of these has their own patterns and common symbols and languages that those within these cultures and communities use amongst each other and understand. Twitch is its own little subculture. People who aren't familiar with the culture on Twitch may not know what the hell poggers means. They're out of the loop because they're not involved with the culture of Twitch. They don't know what the hell a kappa is or a kek W. I don't use Twitch myself, and I only vaguely know some terms commonly used on the platform because I watch some streamers like Asmongold on YouTube from time to time. So should we trace every single one of those slang terms that originated from Twitch back to the specific individual who created it, and then credit those words to their racial group and exclude everyone else from saying it? Because I can confidently tell you right now, it sure as shit wasn't a black dude the first to say poggers. That just sounds like some white e-girl shit. Should we credit these words to the race of the individuals that made them or popularized them, or to the cultures they originated from? And just because it's not part of a culture I'm involved in, does that mean I shouldn't be allowed to say it? Of course not. It may feel a little weird simply because it's not part of my vernacular, but does that mean I shouldn't be allowed to say the shit? No. And does this concept only apply to African Americans? Like, is there a Hispanic American vernacular English? Is there an Asian American vernacular English? Is there, like, how deep does this go? We all use slang terms that originated from these specific communities, but are we only gonna apply this rule to African Americans? I'm confused. And I'm gonna go even deeper on it being more about the culture than it is the color of their skin or ethnic background. There are tons of black people who did not grow up in the hood and absolutely despise black folks from the hood. They can't stand them. They don't want to be around them. They think they're ghetto. They simply just do not relate to them. There are black folks from the hood who don't like being around black folks from the suburbs. They think they got no street cred, they're soft, they don't respect them, etc. It can go both ways because it's not always about the color of their skin. These people aren't racist. They grew up with entirely two different cultures. Not every black person is from the hood. Not every white person is from the suburbs. A black person from the hood and a black person from the suburbs may have a hard time relating to each other on anything other than being black. We can even look into a black person from a mostly white community versus a black person from a mostly black community, no matter the class. They're going to have very different experiences and places to find common ground. We can even look at a black person from a racist white community and a black person from a more accepting white community. Their takes on white people will likely be very different because their experiences with white people have likely been very different. White people from the suburbs don't usually want to be around white trash from a trailer park. You think some blue-haired liberal arts major wants to be around some Trump-supporting redneck? No. They have zero common ground in two entirely different cultures. The language they use is different. The symbols they use to communicate is different. Their style is different. Everything is different other than the color of their skin. And if the color of their skin is the only thing you're using to bunch people all together, then you're really generalizing here. Same thing with a black kid who grew up skating around and playing lacrosse in the suburbs. Probably wouldn't want to be around a black kid who's been in and out of juvie and is affiliated with gangs and shit, because once again, they don't have very much common ground and they have two entirely different cultures. Even where I'm from, gang culture in the DMV isn't really as prominent as it is in a place like New York or LA. We don't really have gangs. It's more about hoods. Like, we don't get into the colors and the Bloods and Crips. We don't have that shit in the DMV. Like, we have some Hispanic gangs. We have MS-13 and shit. But outside of that, within the black community, it's mostly, where are you from? What hood are you from? That's what matters most. It's not about what color shirt you walk in the room with. Nobody gives a shit if you're wearing blue, red, green, purple, pink. It doesn't matter. But you see these two communities of black people who share different cultures mock each other and don't really like each other because it's two different cultures. They don't have common ground in this department. It's got nothing to do with race. A black kid from the hood will likely find more common ground with a white kid from the hood more than another black kid from, let's say, Beverly Hills or something. Because they may not share the same skin color, but they share a lot more life experiences than somebody who grew up under completely different circumstances. They share more culture with each other because they're from a similar space, because it's bigger than race. Race is too simple. It's about culture. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I think it was absolutely shameful to apologize for using a slang term playfully. She wasn't mocking any racial groups. She didn't mean it in a negative way, and she should not have apologized for it. I really personally do not like when people apologize just for other people, because not only is it not sincere and it's just a play to just please people, but it's really a spineless act. It really is, because you're likely going against what you believe in just to please the delusional mob that might potentially try to cancel you. But realistically, she was not going to get canceled for saying no cap on a stack, for real, for real. That is so silly and stupid. And what is the internet society coming to? I don't think this will ever be a popular thing to defend in real life, because in real life, if you go and tell somebody they can't say some shit just because the color of their skin, they're probably going to slap you in the face or call you an idiot. Outside of the internet, no one's going to defend this shit. Things like this only go well on the internet and only catch a lot of momentum on the internet, because in real life, this type of shit doesn't slide. It's not realistic, and realistically, unless you're on a super liberal college campus or something, you're not going to go up to somebody and say yo, you can't say that because African American vernacular English if some white girl says period. You're just not going to do that, bro. Like, that's not how real life works. No one's going to do that. And even if you do, everybody around you is going to look at you like you're crazy and problematic. You're just gonna look like a fool either way, so it's probably best to just let Becky say period and no cap, because it doesn't really matter. You're gonna hear it and move on with life and forget it ever even happened in the next 45 seconds. It's not that deep, and it shouldn't get that far under your skin. So yeah, I just wanted to speak on this whole situation because I feel that she and other content creators that may go defend this are getting it twisted. I think they're seeing it as a very service level coming from people who are not involved in the culture. They live in these multi-million-dollar mansions. They're so disconnected from actual society, and especially impoverished society. And in the position I'm in, I'm still living around the shit and seeing it every day and interacting with these communities. I can tell you that the shit is just not that deep, and you've got it twisted. And maybe if you're going to speak on something like words that belong to certain communities and shit, maybe go interact with these communities. I like someone like Hassan who pretends to be this savior for minorities and people in poverty. I would like him to go find common ground with those people. Go to the hood. How about you interact with them? I mean, if you're going to speak for them, maybe you should go and expose yourself to them, you know? Like, I think if you're going to speak for these communities of people, you need to be interacting with them. I think that's the right thing to do, other than just speaking for them. Because for me, as somebody who is in the communities that these people claim to speak for, they just seem very disconnected and out of touch. Like, we're not offended by this, bro, for the most part, or at least from what I see. Like, I have black family members and black friends I asked about this shit, just like get their opinions. None of them cared. Like, all of them was just like, that's a stupid thing to apologize for. Who cares if she says that shit? Like, it is like, what? Who cares? I don't feel mocked. I don't feel anything. Like, it's just somebody saying slang, because that, like, what? It's just never that deep. That's such a first world problem. Like, most people have bigger issues to worry about. You know, people in these communities that claim they speak for them, as multimillionaire Hassan is claiming to speak for the impoverished minorities of the world, trying to protect them from being offended by things that they are not offended by. He's not thinking, dude, you are only affected by this because you have no actual problems. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, bro. You're not worried about what you're going to eat tomorrow, how you're going to feed yourself, how you're going to, provide for yourself, your family, how you're going to get to work, worried about how to keep the heat on for the winter coming, how to stay warm, afford some coats and shit. He's not worried about that. He and most of his fan base, which are, I would say, it may be a very diverse fan base, but they are mostly privileged people, because anyone that can sit on Twitch all day and just watch some fake socialist dude just rant about things that don't actually matter half the time, they don't really affect anybody. Like this, for example, you've got to be in some sort of position of privilege, because if you weren't, you wouldn't be wasting your time doing that. You'd be trying to figure out shit in real life and try to get things working, instead of just like killing all your time being terminally online. Like, we don't care about what pronouns people are calling us or this, that, and the third, bro. We're worried about how we're going to eat tomorrow, bro. That's what we're concerned with. We don't give a shit about pronouns and all this stuff. That is not on our radar of things to be concerned about. You've got to be so privileged to even worry about that, to even be affected by that. What the hell? People are dying outside on a regular basis where I'm from, bro. I'm not concerned with what people are calling each other, like which bathroom you're gonna use. I don't care. Nobody here cares, bro. We have bigger issues to worry about. You've got to be so delusional and privileged and literally living in a fantasy land to think that this shit actually matters. You are caught in some sort of matrix bubble thing, this alternate reality that is not at all in line with actual reality. That's what I have to say on it. So I think if you're going to speak for these communities, you need to be involved. And that doesn't mean donate to charities. No, I mean actually be involved and communicate in person with these communities. Don't be afraid to go to the hood. I mean, you're so willing to speak for them, right? So go speak to them. Interact with them, get to know who you think you're defending, because I think a lot of them will be surprised at how their thoughts really are not so much in line, and you think you're helping out, but really you're not. Those are my thoughts on this whole thing. Let me know what you think. I'm a little late to this, but I've just been really busy, so I found time where I could to record this, and yeah, hope y'all enjoyed. Peace.